I am here today to talk with us about the opportunity that we're in right now to reimagine our humanness. And when I say reimagine, I mean that we have an image of ourselves that we have inherited from an age of separation, from modernity, from a time in our history when we placed ourselves separate from this creation, separate from nature, at the top of a pyramid that we made up. And so when I say reimagine, I want us to imagine ourselves as part of the ecocosm, part of this planet, part of the song and the smell and the frequency that was already invoked. And what I'd like to weave with that is that the reimagining is also a remembering. It's a remembering of what our cells already know, what our souls have already chosen, that we chose incarnation onto this planet, this extraordinary place that is a Gaia doing life in God's mind. And so the opportunity of this moment is also to wake up to what is already present and remember ourselves as part of Gaia's song. I want to tell you part of how I remembered this. In 2015, I moved to Ashland, Oregon. That summer, the Kalmiopsis wilderness, the nation's second largest roadless wilderness, burned uncontrollably for months. I counted 60 days with no sunlight. I spent the entire summer indoors. And then on September 12th, Harbin Hot Springs was burned to the ground. That was my soul home. It was the place that gave me the name Sweetwater. And as I felt that land disappear and that water be damaged so deeply, I felt like the apocalypse had fully arrived. At home in Ashland, the skies finally cleared, and I resumed my daily practice of hiking while doing all of my business meetings. And one day, I was hiking with two colleagues who specialized in story-based marketing, in bringing the soul's codes forward, like we just did. And they asked me to tell my archetypal story. They said, "Who are you really? Will you tell us really? Because if you can bring that forward, your power will really be available to the world." And at that moment, this profound energy came through my body. And this was the story that came out. My name is Samaya Storm, and I am an ancestor from the ancient future. I have come to you in this summer as your world burns. I incarnated through the living memory of water. I burst through into a burning lake, gasping, and my life's mission is to remember the teachings of the time that I come from, to transmit them to this time in a way where we can get to then. In the time that I come from, the future I live in, this ancient future, we live in devotion to peace, symbiosis, and the ongoing regeneration of a biosphere that was left deeply damaged by the people of your time. In the future I come from, we have organized all of our systems, our technology, our economy, our built environment, even our systems of identity in a way that is aligned with the soul. We realized that the constructs of separation were entirely false. And that all that we needed to do was to pay attention to the way in which the soul wanted to sing itself. And so we built our systems accordingly in metabolic and energetic reciprocity with nature and the soul. And in my time, we remember our place in the soul ecology. We're not consumers. We're co-creators. We're not dominators. We're custodians. We know who and what we are. In the time that I come from, this world, this moment in human history is a cautionary tale. It's a tale of power run amok, of forgetfulness of the soul, of decimation of earth, and of a forgetfulness of the basic unity of our souls with this creation. My task, the task that I've been given in incarnating into this world now, is to keep the doorway to the future I come from open. Whoa. That was a lot to integrate. It left me profoundly and deeply disturbed, inspired, and a bit mystified. How could I, as an ancestor from the ancient future, keep a doorway to that future open? How could I sufficiently remember and embody myself? And I'm really curious as I look out, do any of you have inklings that you struggle to keep open? This is what we are here to do today. So in 2017, the Camp Fire burned huge swaths of Northern California. It burned Santa Rosa, thousands of buildings. It was the largest fire that had happened at the time. Now it dwarfs, other fires dwarf it, but at the time, it was another apocalypse. And 2 days later, an image flashed across my screen. And that image was an image of a burning lake. And it was the precise image I had had in my mind when the vision of who I am as an ancestor from the ancient future came to me 2 years later. And so I knew it was time. It was time to actually enact the teachings. And so I began. I began with an insight that comes from all earth-based traditions. It comes from indigenous traditions. It comes from the goddess traditions. It comes from pagan traditions. And that is that we are weavers and woven ones. We exist in kinship and communion with all of life. And if there's any purpose to a human life, it is to stitch a good stitch into life's fabric. And so I began to listen to how I could write these teachings, how I could teach these teachings, how I could facilitate these teachings. And I began to ask other people, what if we're all ancestors from the future? What if we all have future memories that are trying to be born through us of a world that is beautiful, biodiverse, and entirely flourishing? And not just flourishing on human terms, but flourishing on the terms of life. So I'd like to invite you to turn to a friend. And it might take a little wiggling to find a friend who you can connect with. And I want to ask you to ask yourself, what story about yourself are you still living that was never yours? What's in the way of you remembering your future self, of you remembering the world that we come from, that we are working to build now? And what has the fire in your life been trying to burn away? Is there something that is poking at you, that is indicating whether it is internal to your life or it is happening out in the world like it was for me with these fires that were burning away the things I most loved? What is that fire in your life trying to burn away? please turn to a friend and take 2 minutes each. And switch roles. What story about yourself are you living that was never really yours? What has the fire in your life been trying to burn away? And wrapping up your share, bringing that sharing to a close. Bringing that sharing to a close. Thank you. Oh, your faces are so beautiful. We're not done yet.
No surbelena. Till med wami fanligeni till med everybody come to attention. La 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 la. I'm gonna start telling dirty jokes up here if you don't listen to Samantha.
So, the story continues. The fire was not done with me. In 2018, I had moved back to the Bay Area, and I drove back up to Ashland to sit in ceremony with my very rootsy community up in Ashland. And at that time, there were fires. And we had checked all the maps and done all the homework, and we were way up on a mountain far away from the fires. And the second night of the ceremony, about 3 a.m., about 5 cups into the medicine, the smoke descended on us. And it descended so thick that we couldn't breathe in the maloca, and we had to pour out of the maloca and put our faces in the dirt just to breathe. And all around, the bees were swarming, the birds were squawking, creatures were running through the forest. Everyone was trying to figure out, are we going to die tonight? On 5 cups of medicine with my face in the dirt. And I realized no one knows where this fire is. And I managed to crawl to my car and check my phone, check the emergency system on my phone. Are we safe? We're on a one-lane road. Okay, we're safe. Keep praying. Crawled back to my spot in the grass. And as I laid in the grass and I attended to the smoke, I was present to how I was breathing the dissolution of trillions of life forms. The smoke I was breathing was the disincarnation of trillions of life forms. Billions of trees, millions of animals. And I opened in the most exquisite grief. And I was shown that grief is the base note of what we humans bring to this creation in the currencies of consciousness that we are here to weave into the fabric of life's song. Grief is what love does to praise what it has lost, and it is a reciprocal currency that nourishes the potential for future life forms. And as I allow that grief to flow through me with absolute commitment and absolute abandon, I open to an even wider teaching, which is that the opening of the aperture of all of those currencies of consciousness is the deepest flavor of awe. And that it is in awe as grief, awe as joy, awe as beauty, awe as the feelings we feel when we cry, when we see the moral beauty of all of the people with their hands on that planet. That is awe. And that is the texture we bring that most tends to the gift of our incarnation. And as the morning came, I received the transmission that the world we were born into no longer exists, and that the one that will be is emerging as we live, love, narrate, and create it. So let's do it. Here we are. I'm going to skip a few slides. Here we are at the final, at a destination moment of 3.5 billion years of evolution. And we're the ones who get to co-create the emerging story of its continuation. So my question to you, and I want you to grab the same partner, is what are you carrying? What knowing, what story, or what capacity that in this particular moment Gaia is asking you to bring forth? Please turn to your friends and take a minute to answer this very important question. And start to switch roles of who is sharing. What are you carrying that this particular moment in Gaia's story is asking you to bring forth? And wrapping up this share, make a gentle commitment to continue this conversation for the rest of our lives. I want to thank you all for engaging today with me with this moment of remembering and reimagining. Thank you, friends.
Give it up for Samantha Sweetwater!